Hey, y'all, it's Mr. Kimball. Before this day goes totally away, it's August 31st. Um, for my A classes that met with me today, I did not record today on purpose because it would have been a lot of dead air. I did not record the Google Meet today. It would have just been a lot of dead time because you guys took the pretest for the unit assessment. Okay. But there was some information that I shared at the front end of class that I want to make sure that I say again here in a recording, and I will post this to Google Classroom. So for those who were absent today, you know exactly what was said and what was done. All right, so forgive me for not recording, but I'm going to do my due diligence and make sure I get all this out. So I wrote some notes. If you see me looking over, that's why. I wanted to make sure that I said this to everyone and everyone had an opportunity to hear this again. So over the weekend, I graded some work, and I grade primarily on Sundays, and that is kind of my normal routine. Sunday afternoons, I usually set aside some time and I grade work, and that was true this past Sunday, yesterday. And what you see in the grade book are a few assignments. Number one, there are parent signatures that I have not put any grades in the grade book yet for, but you see the category there so that you know it's hanging over your head. Before Friday at 2 o'clock, I need two forms to be completed. Number one, the course information form. That is listed in a couple of different places. It is on my website. It is also on the course information page as a hyperlink. You all have access to that through Google Classroom in the materials section. Okay, so I'm asking parents and students to get online. There's a Google form that you will need to fill out, and that will suffice for credit for that student. I will look at the form responses and make sure students get credit, but I need parents and students to fill that out. The second one is a little different. I need either a digital version, if you are familiar with how to manipulate PDFs and add a digital signature on top of a PDF, or I need you to be able to print and sign and return that to me before the end of class on Friday, 2 o'clock on Friday. That is the student release form. That's the national board form. For parents, you have not heard me speak on this very much, so just a quick version of a long story. I'm in the process of pursuing my national board certification, and there is a separate form that I need from you. I cannot let students sign that form. Students would have to be 19 years old or older to fill out that form for themselves. Consider this more of a legal type of document. So, parents, I need you to fill it out for your child, and that needs to be returned to me before Friday at 2 o'clock. Um, okay, so if you have questions about that, I was just trying to think of if I needed to say anything else about that. If you have questions on that, please email me, send me a remind message, whatever you need to do to get a hold of me and ask me a question about that. So, two documents turned in before Friday. Going back to the gradebook, the other items that are in the gradebook right now, you will see a no red ink unit diagnostic test for independent and dependent clauses. So students in class on Friday, they took the pretest for the skill set that they are currently working on. I did tell them that it was going to go into the gradebook as participation. And what I did is I only put it in as 5 points. 5 points for anyone who passed. If students received a 60% or higher, they received 5 out of 5. Students who received a 59 all the way down to a 1% received 3 out of 5. Which is still in that passing category. So they did complete it, so they get credit for that. But if students have not taken it, or if they completely blew it off, then they receive that 0% on that assignment. And what that means to me is that student either needs to go back and redo the work um, or complete it the first time, either one. So if I need to open that back up for a couple of people who received zeros, I can do that. The problem is we are on a little bit of a time crunch because students are all in preparation now for the post test, which is going to happen on Wednesday for this group that I'm going to send this video to. So Wednesday in class, you're going to take that post test because you have been practicing that no reading skill. There are two practices inside of no reading that students have the opportunity to enhance their current skill set on identifying independent and dependent clauses. If you have questions, email me. The other assignments, there's two assignments associated with StudySync. StudySync, there were two things that we did last week that are now in the gradebook. We completed a blast together in class last Wednesday. Students were asked to review 10 of their peers. I know a lot of people were not able to get all 10. That's okay. I'm being very flexible. So as long as you completed that assignment, you got full credit for that. And same with the vocabulary assignment that was there. That was the ACT, SAT prep assignment. Again, as long as that was completed, students received the full 10 points that go into the gradebook. And the only other assignment that's there is the pre-unit writing assignment. There were 3 questions that we're going to be exploring through our unit, our literature unit. That was done through Google Classroom in the class work section. And as long as students completed that work, they received full credit for that too. Again, last week was all about making sure that we could manipulate the tools, use the tools, be effective with our time management and those kinds of things. So I was not holding any of my students to an accuracy grade for those assignments, but that day is coming. So just be aware that accuracy grades are just around the corner. As a matter of fact, they're going to start on Wednesday with that no reading post assessment. The other thing that I needed to talk about, and it kind of goes with the grades and with assignments, is the accountability piece. I asked students on the very front end of this semester to make sure that they are more responsible this year than they have ever been in their entire lives. And that means that if a student is absent for any reason, whether they are sick, whether they have appointments, whether they overslept and didn't make the class and tried to get online or missed it, or whatever the situation is, I have very little room for excuses because I do record most of my classroom sessions and post them on Google Classroom. So students could very easily get on Google Classroom, watch that day's video, and know exactly what's going on. The other thing is you have access to my lesson plan document. As a matter of fact, that's what's on in the background right here. This is my lesson plan page. I went through that in the video that I shared with everyone this morning. So students have access to my lesson plan. So if for any reason a student is absent, 2 things. Number 1, go to Google Classroom and make sure that you are checking that day's assignments and watching that day's class video. I'm usually pretty detailed in those class videos of what's going on. Sorry, it's after lunch and I'm a little sleepy as I'm recording this message. That's why I'm using a lot of fillers here. I apologize for that. It's just I'm human. So the other thing is making sure that you're checking the lesson plan document that I have shared with everyone in a couple of different places. Students really have no excuses not knowing what's going on, which leads me to the last thing that I wanted to talk, well, last 2 things that I wanted to talk about, and that is for students who email me and say, hey, Mr. Kimball, I was gone on this day. What did we do? Well, I'm not trying to be a jerk or trying to be rude or anything like that, but the first thing I'm going to do is come back to you and say, well, did you get on Google Classroom? Because I used the analogy this morning of the high chair analogy. And sometimes students come to me and they are fully aware that they have access to all the resources that I would give them, but it's just easier if they just ask a direct question and they expect a direct answer. Well, that's the high chair mentality. That's the mentality that, you're sitting in the high chair, you're strapped in, and I'm just going to feed you every time you open up your mouth. Well, I don't look at it that way. You guys are seniors. You're a little bit older. If you're hungry, just like I would tell my children if they were a little bit older, and I did tell my children when they were older, just because you're hungry doesn't mean that I have to be the one that supplies all of your food resources. You know how to cook. You can get into the pantry, you know how to put things together. Even if it's as simple as peanut butter and jelly, you know where all the materials are, you can make it yourself. And I kind of bring that to the academic setting, where if I've given all these resources and you're asking me a really simple question that you have resources to, I'm going to point you back to the resources. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So if you're asking me, Mr. Kimball, I've been gone on this day, what did we do in class? The first thing I'm going to reply back to you almost 99% of the time is I'm going to say, did you look at Google Classroom? Because everything is there. And if you didn't look at Google Classroom, did you look at the lesson plan document? You have access to all the resources. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of work. And again, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to hold you responsible and accountable for your own learning. Okay. And I'm not just going to spoon feed you every answer that you give me. Sometimes I'm going to point you right back to the resources that are available to you. Okay, last thing, and this is kind of my preview for Wednesday and Friday. So Wednesday, you're going to be completing a study sync assignment. That study sync assignment we will do all together in class. And then on Friday, we will have a time where we're going to practice a little bit of this upcoming fishbowl mentality, and you're going to be able to talk with your peers out loud, actually talk with them online. And I may put you in small groups where I say, and I'll just name 5 or 6 people and say, okay, you guys unmute and you guys can have a conversation about the assignment that we worked on Wednesday. So hopefully that makes sense, but it'll get us into a little more practice of some of the techniques that we'll be using in our future. Okay, I think that is all that I needed to cover at this time. Again, those are the things that I covered at the beginning of class today, and then I turned the class over to students so they can get that pre-assessment done for that study sync assignment. So I bumped the table. And then they had a little bit of time at the end of class to work on No Red Ink and ask me questions if there were any questions that came up during No Red Ink. All right, guys, have a fantastic day. It's Monday. I will see you again on Wednesday. Talk to you later.